Well, remember those Lego trophies from last week? Turns out they were melted down into glue due to potential copyright infringement. I can't believe I, of all people, am about to say that's a good thing, but when F1 replaced them with some Pirelli keychains from the Kota gift shop, Sainz still managed to drop one on the podium. Also, in a completely unrelated note, this video shows that being too much of a Charles Leclerc fan will literally kill you. Austin may have brought the end of a 3-week break, but now Formula One have 3 races back-to-back, which is great for us and the marriage counsellors of team personnel. Not Christian Horner's though, that relationship's more dead than that Leclerc fan from a second ago. Mexico, when the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez played host to round 20 of the season. The high-altitude nature of its surroundings providing an exemplary backdrop for Lando Norris's championship comeback, and for Lando Norris's fans to jump from when they realise David Cameron f***ing a Homo sapien is a far more likely possibility. I appreciate that joke is almost a decade old, but at this point in the year I'm running out of material. If you end up enjoying what I have left in the tank, then help me out by clicking that subscribe button down below. Apparently 57% of you aren't subscribed, or some shit do you really even care. Anyway, now I'm done begging, we've got a lot to cover this week, so let's get into the comedy review. It's the Mexican Grand Prix. News, and following Lando Norris's penalty at the end of the US Grand Prix, McLaren have filed a right to review request to the FIA, the organisation taking a few days to pretend to look it over before promptly telling Team Papaya to shove it where the sun don't shine. Bit like what they said with my copyright appeals in the summer. Come to think of it, I can't remember a time when a right to review case has actually been upheld. I'm starting to think it's more of a psychological construct to make teams at least think they have an ounce of control. Bit like those unsubscribed links and the hot milfs in your area emails. Or democracy. In other news, there was scandal as national treasure and Hamilton fleshlight Martin Brundle was ignored by new Williams seat warmer Franco Colapinto. Cue a special feature by Sky Sports, where the pair battled it out to see who could make the most grovelling apology, though how much this has won over fans I'm not 100% sure of. Satisfaction, as one of the features in last week's Expel End of the Week, didn't take the news particularly well. After threatening to break me in half and referring to me as something he's never seen in his life, X themselves stepped in to provide poetic justice on the entire situation. For the record, I had nothing to do with this, I think anyway. Allegedly, he was also dense enough to suggest the London riots were justified. On to this week's submission, and for the first time, it comes from a team. Sort of. Apex GP, the fictional outfit behind Brad Pitt's latest wet dream, have been tweeting for months like they've been actually competing in the sport. Coming into this weekend, however, the fake team were forced to make a very real apology when one of their social media managers thought telling AI to make Pitt look Mexican and like he had a rare genetic disorder was a remotely good idea. As with any good apology, the users of this wonderful platform would show up in their halls to hurl their pent-up anger. I'm starting to work out that these statements are simply the modern-day equivalent of being put in the stocks, except the rotten food being held at your face is just replaced by people being offended on the behalf of others and violent sexual imagery against your mum. Didn't even think F1 teams could have mums. Remember, you can send your own submissions in for Expel End of the Week by tagging me on the platform, using the hashtag on screen, or heading over to the dedicated channel in our Discord server. Anyway, let's move on. Oh look, a thread about people dying on camera. Charles Leclerc would also be identifying as a Mexican this weekend in an attempt to blend in and avoid the cartel from assassinating him over what happened at Turn 1 12 months ago. Along with a special helmet, he'd picked up some maracas in a photo shoot that will probably see him cancelled in the next 10 years and thrown out to the dogs alongside Brad Pitt and whatever's left of Checo's credibility. Also, the video that goes along with this somehow becomes even more tragic and offensive than that Apex tweet. The Ferrari drivers were also seen playing a light-hearted game of Jenga in the paddock, a feature likely safe for this weekend as towers falling down in the States are still a rather touchy subject over there. At this point, FP1 was about to get underway, which means it's time to showcase the new liveries gracing the grid this weekend. Williams will be the only team to run an alternate look in Mexico, as Logan Sargent's impact on the outfit began to show as they ran out of money for blue paint and had to dip into their heritage closet. The team will be rocking a yellow engine cover for the next 2 races, in a deal with Argentinian bank Mercado Libre, paired alongside an advert which sees Franco Colapinto lose his seat to a guy with black hair, then is forced to drive a delivery van for the remainder of the year. A painful reminder of what will actually happen in about 5 races' time. Franco was another of the stars of last week, as he came from a Q1 exit in qualifying to end up inside the points come the end of the Grand Prix. His reward being a media event where James Vowles publicly sucked him off, whilst poor old Alex Albon was relegated to the resident cuck as he sits there pleading for a member of the audience to have brought a shotgun. Life wouldn't get much better for Alex in practice, as he got scared by a Ferrari at turn 10 and continued to prove that Williams can't seem to field two competent drivers at the same time. That Ferrari would be driven by 2025 Haas victim Ollie Bearman, Albon blaming the Brit for seemingly existing, later managing to be even more delusional by retracting that statement, only to hold the Scuderia accountable instead. Bearman will be one of 5 rookies filling in for the usual suspects in opening practice, being joined by Pato O'Ward, Felipe Drugovich, Kimi Antonelli, and Robert Schwartzman, who's apparently an Israeli now. Schwartzman's inexperience would shine through as he sped under the yellow flags caused by fraud Bond, granting the Sauber stand-in a 5-place grid penalty, which will loom over his head till the end of time as he's never getting an F1 seat, and why is he here anyway? I mean, I know what happened last time we trusted the French with an F1 car, but surely it's time to give Teo a shot. As mentioned, Antonelli was also back, and lasting a little longer out on circuit in his last foray with the team at Monza. That didn't stop him bringing out his own red flag, however, the Italian making some setup changes by tearing #blessflaw to bits. Though, given how much Lewis seemed to like his new upgrades last week, maybe his replacements just done him a favour. George Russell and the other Merc would end up topping the session, though FP2 would in fact unveil that Crikey Man enjoys Pirelli tyre tests about as much as Liam Payne does a flight of stairs. I won't get any hate for that joke down in the comments. Conveniently down is the one direction most fans don't want to talk about at the moment. As I was saying, FP2 would end up being an extended session because part of it was used to test Pirelli's new rubber for 2025. Or if you read social media, because Max Verstappen hit reliability woes in FP1. The Dutchman wasn't faring much better in the afternoon, however, as we got to play a game of bingo over the 90 minutes with potential problems with his car. He thus spent the majority of the session stuck in the garage alongside Alex Albon, who was still sat in the naughty corner following his Sargent impression in FP1. Charles Leclerc would also miss out on the early running, as his car also required repairs, but did get out in time to go 4th quickest, in a session topped by his Ferrari teammate Carlos Sainz. Tsunoda was a surprise 3rd in a session that in reality gave us little idea of what the true running order looked like. It was over to FP3 then, Ferrari still looking up, quite literally for this mechanic. I wonder if he sounded a little like this guy. Red Bull, meanwhile, continued to be plagued by problems. Verstappen was forced to revert to an old-spec power unit and still complained to the point where his Brazilian upgrades might start looking a little like this. Still, could always be worse. Sergio Perez was 14th. On the other end of the tyres, McLaren had appeared to refine their form on Saturday morning, Piastri taking the spoils in final practice, with Norris in hot pursuit. Haas's lack of simulator work was apparent when both drivers appeared to forget what way they were going, but a positive session overall for the American outfit left spirits high for qualifying. While as the session drew to a close, Liam Lawson attempted a new strategy of keeping cars behind. That takes us to Saturday afternoon and qualifying, and you know what, these Sergio Perez jokes are getting a bit old, aren't they? A bit like him going out in Q1. That won't stop it from happening, or me from making them, the useless sack of shit. Checo wouldn't be the only big name to fall early. Oscar Piastri was being courted by Glass Eye earlier in the weekend, the Australian doing his best to shake off the Austrian's advances by showing off his best Perez impression to go out in the first part of qualifying. Colapinto, Ocon and Slow would make up the rest of the drivers eliminated, all 5 having to now live with the sad reality of being out-qualified by Lance Stroll. With the field shuffled then, that provided an opportunity for some unlikely candidates to progress into Q3. RB and Haas looked to be vying for those positions, the American squad getting both cars through just in time for Yuki to be f***ing useless and gift the squad P6 in the constructors. The Japanese driver's crash brought an early end to Q2, disrupting a lot of run plans and setting us up for a thrilling top 10 shootout. Norris, Verstappen and the Ferraris all looked to be in pole contention, while Mercedes' pace appeared to drop off a cliff again. Max Verstappen would draw first blood in Q3 though, as he took provisional pole with a lap time so quick it made you wonder if he'd cut half of it out. As it turned out, that is exactly what he'd done, and that was his lap time deleted. Sainz would inherit provisional P1 then, before improving on his second lap, Ferrari's pace coming good at the perfect moment. Verstappen would recover to second, with Norris close behind in third, while the man replacing the pole sitter bottled his attempt and will line up 6th. On to Sunday then, and Verstappen would get a tremendous launch, getting ahead of Carlos Sainz heading down into turn 1. Speaking of heading down into turn 1, Yuki Tsunoda would do so backwards, resulting in the first corner looking more like an opening scene from Casualty. The RB man was Alex Albon's second victim of the week, wiping both out of the equation as the safety car took over the race lead for lap 2. In brighter news, Sergio Perez made a fantastic getaway and had made up 5 positions. A great start, in his own words. Probably because he jumped it. With the Mexican still somehow in denial, the safety car was coming in and Verstappen leading the field to green. There'd be no calamities this time, but Sainz was on hot pursuit of the Dutchman ahead. 1 lap later and the Spaniard was back in the lead, setting Norris up for an overtake on Verstappen. The McLaren man dived around the outside, seemingly forgetting how well that went in Austin last time out. As it happened, Lando found himself in the lead, only after Max repurposed his McLaren for a lawnmower at turn 5, thanking Norris for handing the position back by giving him an extended tour of the circuit's infield. Verstappen's Mexican GP safari was not viewed so fondly by the FIA stewards, who confused Twitter by awarding the Dutchman with 20 seconds worth of time penalties. I don't know what's more shocking, that or the fact that if he served said penalty, he'd still be ahead of Sergio Perez. Speaking of the home hero, he found himself battling his unannounced replacement for next season. Checo had been driving this weekend like no steward can touch him, and any driver ahead should gracefully move out the way because it's his home race. Well, Liam Lawson clearly hadn't got that memo, punishing Checo with a hole in his side pod and a meet and greet with Aston Martin's Lance Stroll. Checo's 2023 Mexican GP was at least a simple bullet in the brain. This year, he's been kneecapped and left to bleed out while getting pissed on by his fellow backmarkers. Lawson, on the other hand, had no intention of making amends as he taught the Mexicans some Kiwi culture. Meanwhile, it was Fernando Alonso's 400th Grand Prix this weekend, and as a reward, Aston Martin allowed him to only compete 17 laps before retiring for the day. What had been a thrilling Grand Prix was now settling down a bit, meaning it was about time for Sky Sports to start trimming up impossible rain and the Mercedes drivers to give Toto Wolff a heart attack. #Bless was struggling to get past Crikey Man, who, let's not forget, had the old spare Caro package after repeatedly fisting his new one into the Tech Pro barriers. George, though, held the position, meaning either Merck's engineers are monumentally dense or Ferrari have just themselves for 2025. The man they handed the P45 to at the beginning of the season had now made his pit stop and held a comfortable 5-second lead from Italy's Jesus reincarnate, and Ferrari's first back-to-back 1-2 since 2008 was by no means a done deal. Lando Norris was now closing back in and had discovered the ability to manifest his bottle onto others, Leclerc spraying diarrhea all over the runoff as he gifted the McLaren P2. Norris would then set off to Carlos for the win, but he'd run out of laps, the Spaniard coming across the line to take a popular win and potentially one of the last of his career. It was bad news for Checo fans as Red Bull went for the dreaded Daniel Ricciardo fastest lap glory run strategy, except he couldn't even manage to get that right. Lando and Charles would round out the podium then in a big result for both the Drivers' and Constructors' Championship. With Verstappen 6th on the road, his lead has taken a big hit, and Ferrari have continued to close down McLaren as well. We're in for a cracky end to the season, and if this continues in 2025, we've got some fun times ahead. Let me know what you thought of the race in the poll on my community page and down in the comments of this video. And if you enjoyed the comedy review, a like and subscribe would go a long way as well. A huge thank you for hitting 150k in the last week, and to the patrons as well who get early previews to my content. And if you want to get involved in that, all the relevant links can be found in the description. Now I'm off to laugh at Sergio Perez a little more, but until then, have a good one.